Hi everybody! Hopefully the topic of this video isn't too far out there. I find the depiction of famous figures in fiction to be very fascinating, so I thought I'd talk about one that I've tried to tackle myself and am still working on. The most famous figure I've depicted in The Angel Professor so far is definitely Satan, or the Devil. Of course, I am definitely not the first person to attempt this. There have been many other depictions that are either really good or confusing, or I don't know, there's just so many. But obviously at some point those writers have to sit down and think, okay, I have to depict the devil, but how am I gonna do that? Then you have to ask yourself, who is the devil, what is he really like, and how would he interact with other people? Of course, this is the question that I found myself asking, so I had to think about these things, and I thought it would be fun to compile some of those thoughts and elements that went into this character in a video. Regardless of your stance on religion, there's no denying the impact that the devil or the idea of the devil has had on culture. Not just religion, but fiction and music and movies, you name it. Now obviously the traditional depiction of him is like the king of evil, but religious texts describing him are often very cryptic and there are little interactions with other characters in the Bible. The beauty of this is that there is a very solid basis, but as far as execution goes, there is a lot of freedom. I don't remember thinking too deeply about the devil when I first started developing the Angel Professor. If anything, I was thinking more about the angels. He was probably more of a vague threat at the beginning than a person or a character. Of course, he has definitely evolved now to not only be a character, but also the main antagonist, with a very strong personality and characteristics. When I first realized that I needed to depict the devil, I knew I didn't want him to appear a monster at first glance, and since the angelic and demonic cast were already more human-like in general, I leaned that way for Satan as well. Now, I honestly don't know why. Maybe I need to strengthen my imagination muscles, but ever since I was young, I always had this image in my head that automatically generated every time I needed to think of someone evil. A 30-something-year-old man with messy blonde hair. I don't know what it was, maybe the slightly disheveled look reminded me of chaos or rebellion, but why this screamed evil to me, maybe I'll never know. This wasn't really how I imagined the devil, it was just this placeholder mental image for any future villains in my stories until I could come up with a more specific design for them. But I realized that up until now I'd never actually used that image or even tried to draw it, so probably to speed up the process, I basically just drew that evil person I imagined, but with a bit of inspiration from some anime characters, and notably a green trench coat. The only other significant detail the design had so far was piercing blue eyes. Now, I don't think that blue eyes symbolize evil or anything. I only did this because blue is a color I rarely use in TAP, and because of this, I thought it would make his eyes stand out and contrast the other characters, especially the angels who have really flashy, pretty eyes such as Jakob, Maggie, or Gabriel. Now, I posted this drawing on the Comic Fury forums without any context whatsoever, and asked people to tell me what vibe they got from him. And I was not disappointed by the reactions. A few people said the vibe wasn't too specific, but others said that there was definitely something about him that made them uncomfortable. One person even said he looked like he likes to microwave butterflies. There was definitely a majority of people, though, who stated that there was at least something about him that seemed off, mainly the facial expression. However, I ran into a slight problem when I realized that Satan and our leading angel Jakob both had blonde hair. I guess in hindsight I could have just given him red hair, since Satan is traditionally depicted that way, but I literally didn't even think of that, and now it's too late. Satan is a dumb blonde. I didn't really want to change the design though, since it almost perfectly captured this creep that was in my head, and others seemed to get the vibe from him that I wanted. So I drew the above drawing just to test the contrast levels. When drawing this test, I was actually heavily inspired by the designs of Vi and Jinx in Arcane. They're both really cool designs, they're both sisters with colorful hair. However, to me anyway, Vi's design is not only significantly warmer in color, her design actually makes her seem protective, like a heroic figure or even a mother, which makes me feel more comfortable looking at her. Even though Vi is very rough around the edges and has a bad reputation, she still has this overwhelmingly positive vibe about her. Jinx, meanwhile, has cold colors and everything feels sharper or jagged. Her skinny frame is the opposite of Vi's strong build, so she appears more vulnerable, not someone you can depend on. Of course, the sunken eyes don't hurt, but even just the fact that she contrasts her sister, I think makes us see her differently from her, even if she wasn't a villain. I don't know who the designers are, but they definitely should get serious props for that. Maybe the contrast in my drawing, though, is not quite as obvious. The personalities appear different, but I had already decided that Yaakov's hair was meant to mimic Renaissance depictions of biblical or angelic figures, tight and unrealistically defined curls. So that meant Satan's messy hair could never be too curly, and I also tried to ensure his hair color felt less golden or almost bleached in comparison. If Yaakov has a strong masculine build, then Satan needs maybe a slightly more feminine build. If Yaakov has warm colors, Satan will have cold colors. Another important detail I thought of was that if Satan was wearing a green jacket, it could never be a pretty green, which I associate with the character Margaret or with Joan's scepter. This sort of represents life or healing in the story. Well, I mean, I do use green sometimes in the comic, like I didn't color the grass blue, but the only other significant green presence is very much a radioactive green, kind of like Scar's Be Prepared song from The Lion King. This was just for dramatic effect. When I drew Satan in the comic for the first time, somewhere in the process I decided that he would never button up his shirts, assuming he was even wearing a shirt. To contrast the angels, I wanted Satan to have an almost promiscuous air about him, since all he can offer or even understand as love would be skin deep or transactional only. I like to give the angels and demons in this story little quirks that either set them apart from humans, or in this case allude to who that character is. Satan is sometimes depicted as a serpent or a dragon in the Bible, so I gave him some snakeskin boots, and black fingernails. But there was no way I was going to pass up the opportunity to use a dragon form in a fight at some point, so I knew I didn't want a traditional medieval-style dragon, so I opted for more of an Eastern one, or just a large serpent with goat's horns. I wasn't feeling this design though. It had been years since I'd drawn a dragon, and I didn't feel like I was qualified, so I went to some Discord peeps for help. One cool friend goes by Spello. She made a sketch over top of this that just blew my mind. It was so much more expressive and fluid, so I heavily used that sketch as a reference and just made the style fit Tap style a bit more. So absolutely huge props to her. She's also an excellent comic creator and artist as well. I'll link her Instagram in the description. Much better. I added Yaakov in for scale. I kind of wanted this to be mini kaiju size. Now, is there anything else significant I should mention about his design without giving away lots of future plot details? Well, I remember being fascinated by a painting called The Fallen Angel, and eventually I wanted to try redrawing it, but with my Lucifer, just as an experiment. This drawing actually helped me visualize some other important aspects of Lucifer's background. Lucifer is cursed, so I associated the serpent aspect of his character as a constant reminder of that. We see more pieces of that form shown here than usual, since he had just lost touch with his angelic form. Sometimes we see Satan make use of this form on purpose, such as the talons, but normally when the snake comes out, it's more like he lost control of his human form for a second. Satan's wings here are singed from holy fire, and one by one each feather has fallen, the bones from the wings soon to follow. We can see that when he had wings, they were a royal blue color. To further set him apart from his fellow fallen angels, and to sort of set him up as the fallen angel, I decided that he would never have wings again, not even dragon wings. Yes, the other demons still have their wings actually, although they're now tainted by darkness or blood. I don't have all the backstory details for this character yet, since that's pretty spoilery and far in the future. Maybe Satan was once even more beautiful than he is now. My friends do tell me he's at least hot. And I mean, he was supposedly the most beautiful angel in heaven, so I wouldn't be surprised if his hair used to be long and well kept, and it either got singed or he cut it off himself right after he was cast out. It's cliche, but I'm not going to spoil anything, and this isn't a full character analysis video. But based on what we've seen in the story so far, we can gather that he's sadistic and unhinged. He has moments where he seems spiteful and a little crazy, but also moments where he's eerily calm. He may not be the smartest, but he's not stupid. He may talk big, but he doesn't share his plans. He makes spontaneous decisions, but he's also pulling strings in the background, all to work toward his own goals. While he's not someone any sane person would want to put up with, as a character I can't help but find him entertaining and even humorous, and I know I'm not alone in that. His stark disrespect and noisy persona make him quite the icon. There will be a lot more to him, but for now, this is what I've built. I really appreciate you enjoying my work and engaging in the story and process with me. It's a huge honor to share with you, and you are the ones who make this so much fun. God bless.